The following program was recorded at WERC's annual conference in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to welcome Supply Chain Brain Editor Emeritus, Gene Murphy.
Hello. Today I'm speaking with Bob Rienecke, Manager of Integrated System Sales at TGW Systems. We're talking about improving productivity through the use of automated storage and retrieval systems. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Tell us what automated storage and retrieval systems are and how they work in a supply chain.
Essentially, they're a tool, a management tool to store and retrieve either pallets or cartons or boxes or totes into a kind of a dense storage system. And companies use these to get more storage density of their materials, and they use them just to manage the materials in their warehouse.
So how does this relate to sequencing technologies?
The sequencing part is where a company is trying to bring product out in a certain sequence for demand, order demand, or for work in process, or for a build program, and they need the material out in a certain sequence, if you will, that allows them to be more efficient in whatever task they're doing.
What is driving customer interest in these systems today?
A lot of companies are rethinking the way they did business prior to the slowdown of a couple of years ago. And I think people are saying, all right, if I do things differently, and I know the economy is going to grow again, should I consider some alternatives? Should I consider doing things differently? There are certain fixed costs in an operation, and there's certain variable costs. And so they look at both of those and say, okay, if I apply my dollars and my finances towards something that's going to provide more benefits for my business, then I'm going to focus on that.
And I've heard this phrase, mini load sequencing. What is that?
The mini load part of it is something that there's a pallet load and there's a mini load. And the mini load system focuses more on smaller containers, smaller products, smaller totes, if you will. And typically, the mini load will handle automatically either cartons or totes that maybe weigh from 10 pounds to 600 pounds. And the mini load will store those in a specific spot each and every time and retrieve them without operator intervention.
So give me some idea what companies are best, with this technology, best to be applied in, and how do you make that determination?
The companies that consider this, it's quite broad. Retail market certainly would use this technology and does use this technology. The food industry, beef, beverage, they have used this and are using this today. And also industrial markets. And the industrial is a pretty broad category, but it includes like pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and anything in that kind of industrial category.
So deciding if a company wanted to incorporate this, it would be looking at things like shipment or article size and shipment size and so forth?
Absolutely. You really have to take an analysis or do an analysis on your business. You have to understand what kind of activity rate you have, what the loads look like, size, weight, length, height, and typically our customers or clients will go back over the past year or so and say, okay, how many of these items were handled in a particular time frame? Like for instance, maybe over a month, how many orders do I get for that product? And over a day, and then over a year. And so that allows companies like ourselves the opportunity to understand more about the business, one, and two, to understand the dynamics of load movement activity. And that helps us size the system, not only for capacity, but also for rate requirements. How quickly, how often, how frequently do I need to to move these items to be effective.
So what kind of operational throughput improvements or productivity improvements could a company expect by implementing an ASRS system or the mini load sequencing?
Probably the biggest factor is more storage density. I can put more of my products in a smaller footprint of space, and warehousing costs are considerable. So if I can maximize the storage cube, if you will, from the floor to the ceiling, then I have a smaller footprint of storage space. So that's one factor. And because everything's automated, the loads are retrieved automatically and stored automatically, so I don't need as much labor to perform the picking task, if you will. And if I'm sequencing the loads out for different activities like a build program, I can get the material just in time to the operator, so I'm more efficient and I'm more accurate too, because I know exactly what I have for inventory.
So do the systems that run this equipment, does it provide information that can be used elsewhere in the organization? Does the software provide information?
Absolutely, and that's the biggest, I think, benefit. It's another benefit, I should say, because in addition to labor savings and storage density, I have visibility in what I'm doing in my business. I can make decisions for production. I can make decisions for staffing up or downstream in this operation. I can make decisions on what I can ship that day for my customers. And I have an historical record of what's occurring each day, so I can make good management decisions on my business.
Are these systems something you need to implement in one fell swoop, or can they be implemented in stages?
Some companies will put a small system in first with the anticipation of growth. And so maybe the system might be 1 or 2 or 5 aisles of mini load cranes. And we have customers today that are saying, okay, this is working so well, my business is growing, I'm moving more material into my warehouse, so I'm going to add additional aisles and storage capacity to respond to the growth of my business.
And what kind of return on investment might a customer expect?
Typically, most people look for a range of maybe 2 to 3 years for a payback. And some companies in longer-term planning operations might go out to 5 years, but most often we see somewhere in the 2 to 3 range being a trigger to make this a good decision.
And is a lot of maintenance required to keep these running efficiently?
You do have to maintain an automated system, and the vendor, the supplier of this technology, usually has what we call a spare parts kit. And the user of this should have this in place, because if something happened, if an aisle were down or there was a motor was down or something like that, you need to respond quickly, because everything is dependent upon moving material in and out of the system. So spare parts are important. Training is important for the staff that owns this system. You need a kind of an electrical, mechanical person that can understand this kind of technology. And also, we find that an important factor is to have VPN access to the system. And by that I mean, if I'm the user, I can connect directly to the supplier of the mini load system, and that supplier can dial in and access historical records or current records of what's transpiring in the system and make adjustments or make recommendations to the person on site to say, okay, change this or fix this or replace that. So my response time to uptime is improved.
And what is a typical lifespan?
Boy, lifespan, there are systems out there that are 10, 15 years old. The technology has been around much longer than that, but that's kind of an average, I would say.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've been speaking with Bob Rienecke of TGW Systems. Thank you for watching.